Welcome to our Visiting Angels coffee chat, and we're so glad you could join us today. Feel free to get settled in and grab a cup of coffee if you drink coffee, a hot cocoa or milk, if you will, and make yourself comfortable. While we wait for everyone to arrive, I'd like to hear a little from you. If you may indulge me, maybe share where you're watching from or share in the chat one small thing that brought you here, any reason at all that you're here. Or if you're a caregiver, maybe a tip or two, a trick or two to make, the day a little easier. Anyway, we'll be starting shortly. But before we do, let's just enjoy a few minutes to connect, relax, get ready to be inspired. And if you're curious about today's presentation, I promise it's going to be full of creativity and you know, surprises. Because today you're going to hear a story of love, creativity, and courage. And it's about a journey that began when one woman faced a life changing challenge with a parent she cherished. And through imagination, persistence, and willingness to try something new, she discovered ways to connect, engage, and create lasting memories in ways most of us never imagined. And her story has inspired caregivers, touched audiences across the country, and even been featured in national media. And by the end of today's session, you'll see how one person's dedication can transform challenges into moments of joy and hope. So, yes, let me know if you guys are ready. Are we ready? Awesome, awesome. So somebody here is listening from South Africa and a
Yes.
social worker professionally. Anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you our expert panelist today, Loretta Viney. Loretta, the floor is yours, and I'm so excited to hear your story.
Oh, thank you so much, Dexter, for the warm welcome. I'm thrilled, thrilled, thrilled to be here. And today we're going to be talking about the joy and benefits of building brick memories. I trademarked that phrase because I think it's so much fun helping people build stuff with Lego bricks. So the tool that we're going to be talking about today is called Lego Serious Play. And yes, it's a real thing. So I hope you buckle up, as Dexter said. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, I even made a Lego version of the Visiting Angels logo because I know you're all superheroes out there. So thank you for all you do to care for those you are working with. So thank you so much. So let's take a look at what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to tell you, Dexter shared a little bit about our journey, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about how in the world we got started with all this. And then I'm going to give you a really short explanation of what Lego Serious Play is. And then we're going to look at three different scenarios for how you can use Lego Serious Play for building memories with Lego bricks. Now, I'll introduce each of them to you as we go through. And I think you'll find them, really helpful. But I want you to put your thinking caps on because as we go through and you'll see a lot of pictures of happy people playing with Lego bricks. And I want you to think about, hey, I could do that with Miss Betty, or Roger might like that. He used to be an engineer or an architect. Maybe he would like that. So think about how you might be able to bring some joy to the folks you actually work with. And I promise you, I will save some time at the end for questions. So let's get started. Well, as you heard in the introduction, wow, quite the journey we had. My mother was diagnosed with dementia in 2006. She was 77 years old at the time. And, when you get dementia, happens in your family, you have no idea what the journey is going to be like. So my mom was like, oh, that's bad, isn't it? When the doctor said it was dementia, like, oh, and, I promised her didn't know what to promise her. She was the first person in our family to ever get this disease. So I didn't know, I didn't want to overpromise. So I promised her one thing I knew I could control, and that was joy. So I say, we're going to have joy every day. And she said, okay, okay. And we pretty much did that, right? So unfortunately, our journey ended on January 31st of 2023. So almost exactly 3 years. And we really did focus on that joy thing. And I think the best way I can, continue to honor my mom and legacy that she and I created together is just continue this work. So here we are. So the number one question I get usually, I'll answer it right now. How in the world did you get started with this whole Lego thing? Oh my, this is crazy. Lego, yeah, yeah. So the true story is when I was 5 years old, my mother gave me a box of bricks. And that became our those 55 plus year journey with Lego bricks. And it's interesting, when you're little, you don't realize the sacrifices always that your parents make. And I don't know how my mother afforded Lego. She's raised us, my sister, as a single parent. And, but we did Lego for everything. When things went well, we built with Lego. I got good grades in school. We built with Lego. If some boy didn't like me, we built with Lego. So, good and bad, right? But I learned something really interesting. When my mother had Lego bricks in her hands, she would share stuff and talk about things that she would not otherwise talk about. So I'm like, this could be a thing. And so when she was initially diagnosed, I noticed right away as the disease progressed, even in the first couple of years, they start to forget words. And so if she was trying to say this word, and she said, pass me that thing right there. You know what I'm talking about. And but she couldn't remember it. And so you can tell already, I think, in the first few minutes, I talk really fast, right? But one of the first lessons I learned using the Lego bricks was if I just gave my mother a couple of bricks while she was struggling for a word, and then waited till she clicked calmed down and then clicked the little bricks together. Then she would say, water bottle. I just had to wait, right? So I learned not to finish my mother's sentences, just to give her time and give her some Lego bricks so she could do it, right? And then comes that day you never want, the day your parent forgets who you are. For us, that happened in year 8 in 2014, right? Wow, that's a day. And I had been watching this thing out of Lego headquarters in Denmark called Lego Serious Play. I was like, It was designed by Lego to be a corporate tool to help with team building and corporate organization and that kind of stuff. Well, but the first thing I noticed was like, okay, we already have this great communication going with Lego. She would talk about things she wouldn't talk about otherwise. I'm like, okay, the course was really expensive. I was like, I didn't want to pay for it. But when she forgot who I was, okay, now it's time to spend that money and let's do that. Because I really wanted to keep that engagement alive. So I signed up for the class. Best thing I could have done. And one of the things that I wanted to use it with, this picture is amazing because when she was trying to articulate how she felt about this diagnosis, right? And especially as it really started to progress, the way she articulated that when people would ask her, and I would ask, what are you, afraid of about this disease most? And she said, she took the head off of it. As you can see, she held up the body and she said, I feel like in a few years, I'm going to lose my head. I put that on social media and people lost their minds. Like, wow, how profound of her to be able to articulate that with Lego. Right? So I was like, okay, we on to something. So I take the class, best thing I ever done. You can see from these pictures, really cool. She could do Duplo, which are the larger ones. We'll talk about sizes of bricks to use when we get toward the end. And then you can see the picture on the right. That was probably 2 months before she died. That was her first pureed meal, and I was kind of chronicling it, if you will. But she's also looking at the Lego bricks, like what's her next move. So she's multitasking, even with dementia. She's looking at her, pureed food, and she's looking at the Lego bricks. And she could do the small ones, the large one. It was just all about the Lego. And my greatest thing was just to build love with her. That was the whole thing. Now I get the second most popular question I get: is this Lego serious thing? Is it a real class? Is this a real thing? It most certainly is a real thing. It was harder than my master's degree, I swear. They take their little training seriously. And so it was a whole week, and there's my class, my graduating class. I had a lot more hair back then. The gentleman on the far right with the light colored shirt and the burgundy pants, his name is Robert Rasmussen. He is one of the creators of Lego Serious Play. And 11 years later, on the bottom right there, me and Robert are at Lego headquarters in Denmark for some advanced training. I've had advanced training to teach it online. Who knew COVID was going to be a thing? And then the last few years, we've covered topics such as resilience. So I'm helping lots of people out there build resilience. And we've even had a topic of reframing. Now, I want you to remember that word in just a couple minutes. Reframing. I'm going to come back to that. How you take a sort of a bad situation, and not many situations are worse than dementia, but you can take a bad situation and reframe it, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So after this training, there was kind of like I felt unstoppable after that. You can see in the picture on the left, my mom is building. There's a bedroom scene. Lego used to make these little storyboards, they called them in Lego education. And then you could build a scene with your Lego bricks. So she's building her bedroom. As you can clearly see, she made a little bed. There's a horse in the bedroom. I don't know why that's there, but who am I to tell her that the horse didn't belong in the bedroom? So hey, they just had fun. On the right, she's actually telling a story, which is how Lego Serious Play works. You can see a heart there on the page. There's a little heart, and it comes in large size and sort of a smaller size. And so I, not only learned how to communicate with my mom, but she had taught us a really valuable lesson when we were kids, and that is when you find something that works, you don't keep it to yourself, you share it with other people. So I went out after my little training. I went out and I went to some neighborhood nursing homes, like, hey, do y'all want to play with some Lego? They're like, yeah. So I was just trying it out on all these people, and they loved it like as much as my mother. And I'm like, okay, this might be a thing. So off I went, and the rest is history. So, all right, what is this thing really? What is Lego Serious Play? Well, I told you a little bit about it, in the sense that they created it in the late 1990s, early 2000s. They were trying to compete strategically with Mattel to kind of overtake them as the number one toy company. And they asked some people, Robert Rasmussen being one of them, to sort of spin off from Lego and create this consultancy to see how they could be better, stronger, faster. Yay. And so they came up with these four things you are seeing on the screen. So it has four parts. The first is the task. So whoever I'm working with, they give me a task and do what they want to accomplish in their session. And so I come up with these questions, what we call build tasks for folks. So I give the task. Everybody uses their little Lego kit that I provide to build their version and interpretation of the task. And then the power of it is all in the share. We go around the room or around the little screen if we're doing it virtually, and we share the story of what you have built. It is amazing. And then there's a reflection phase where me as the facilitator, I encourage questions and what themes did we see? If we're building joy, for example, what did we see? What was the difference between Deborah's model and Becky's model? And so, I would have not thought of that. So you have a lot of dialogue. But here's the real reason I started using it with dementia. Because when I tell people I use Lego Serious Play with people with dementia, I get the look, what? Are you trying to say people with dementia can tell a story of what they, of course they can tell a story. Of course they can. And the reason why I knew it would work is this. I was hooked from the moment I found out how it operated, because Lego Serious Play ensures that everyone is included and that all, I say again, all voices are heard. And for me, that included people with dementia. Why would it not? It says all voices. Does it say all voices except people with dementia? No. So it was on for me. So people thought I was absolutely crazy. Like, who is this woman in Maryland doing these really crazy things with people? And it was just fun. And as Dexter pointed out, media came from everywhere. Like, this is crazy. The Wall Street Journal, that's a funny title for an article. I asked them to speak with Legos. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but hey, worked for me. We were in a couple of PBS specials, but the word just started to get out. But life changes dramatically for you when you end up with Robin Roberts on Good Morning America. It's kind of like, what? She was like, girl, I don't understand this Lego thing. Explain it to me. So so we have a little thing of Legos. And she said, oh, I guess she built her little thing and told her story. She's like, oh, this is good. We had a ball. But it is a cool way to do Legos. All right. I promised you three things, scenarios that I was going to cover today. So the first one is using Lego bricks just with the people with dementia building alone. Okay. What's the benefit of that? Well, you're looking at some really happy people on the right side of the screen, right? So you're helping them reminisce. You know, if you just started working with them, for example, they're going to take you way back to 1939. This is the house I lived in 1939. Yay! And everybody claps. We move on to the next person. And so some old memories that they may have forgotten, but that when you said, build your favorite time in school. Oh, when I was in third grade, I won the science fair. Yay. I mean, moments of this intense clarity comes back. And we think it's because of this tactile thing that you're putting together and you hold it up, you tell your story, and it's just amazing. And so when I say improve clarity, such as speaking again, this is now, if you saw my post on LinkedIn on Monday, you'll notice I'm going into my 12th year as a certified Lego Serious Play facilitator. In that time, I have three people who have spoken again after being nonverbal for more than a year. That's a thing. And so I'm really excited, about that. And so one of the things that I have found, especially around the joy of this, there's not a lot of joy in dementia, right? But we can sort of reframe, as I talked about a little bit earlier, the devastation of the disease by creating moments of joy for them. Look at them happy people on there. And the gentleman with the long beard, what's amazing about him is that he's at a center called Generations Crossing in Harrisonburg, Virginia, right across from James Madison University. And he former Marine. He was like, I don't play, but his daughter always says, Loretta, if my dad's not looking out the window for me to pick him up, I know it's Lego day. So you'll play with the Lego, and you can't see him smiling. He's a tough guy, but he was loving every minute of that. So a lot of benefits to that. All right. So what do I build with these folks? Well, favorite memories, school stuff, whatever level they want to talk about, what they did for a living. And one of the favorite questions, and I'm going to show you some build from it in just a little bit, what is their favorite life accomplishment? I've gotten some stunning responses to that. A lot of family memories. Oh, we went every year to Martha's Vineyard and we had a house in Myrtle Beach or whatever it was, family dinners with the folks. I mean, everything. I also asked a lot about bucket lists. We seem to think for some reason when somebody's diagnosed with dementia, they don't have a bucket list. Of course they do. They still have it. And we should do it while they still can. Right. So I ask a lot of that. And I'll give you one example only. I had a guy raise his hand, why are you asking my dad to build his bucket list? Yeah, I'm not trying to be rude, but he has dementia. And I didn't say, but I wanted to say, you're focused on the wrong deed. He has dementia. He is not dead. And then when the father built what he wanted to build, he built this tall, skinny thing, holds it up, and he says, I have always wanted to go to Paris to see the Eiffel Tower. The son is like, Dad, you have never, ever said you wanted to go see the Eiffel Tower. Oh, I've always wanted to go. About 4 months later, I get this thank you note from the son. It says, Dear Loretta, thank you for giving me this gift with my dad. Two of them standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. That made me cry. It's an amazing story. So we build superpowers, we build hope and joy, all kinds of, and you can see happy people. Now, what's funny about the lady with her arms crossed there, she looks really mad, like she's not engaging. Well, you could see she had already built her thing. She was mad because the other people were taking too long. She was ready to build something else. So that's why she's looking kind of unhappy in that picture. So the minute we let her build again, she was happy again. So that's kind of funny. So I want to bring your attention to the reframing example I wanted to give you. This is Collington. I live in Clinton, Maryland, in Prince George's County. And Collington is about 20 minutes from me. And the arrow that's pointing down, I want you to notice, if you know anything about Lego, it's upside down, right? Usually the studs are on top. This woman built this thing that was upside down. It was 2017. I was, just getting rolling really good with the Lego Serious Play, and I'd never seen anybody do that upside down. So I'm all excited. Look at you! Oh, that's fabulous! And she's mad. She's instantly mad because I don't understand why it's upside down. So she says, "Of course, it's upside down. It's just like my brain." Hmm, amazing. And then, but here's what she did. She's the perfect example of reframing because then she pushes that to the side and then she kept building. She looks like she's doing a math problem. I found out later for 36 years she taught physics at the University of Maryland. Okay, wow, I, amazing. And she was supposedly nonverbal. I'm thrilled with her. So lots of stories like that. Look at the intensity of the gentleman, on the left. The lady in the beige sweater. She built nothing until she could separate everything by color. The level of these folks were pretty much late stage for sure. She should not be able to do that at that stage, but you see it, you're looking right at it. And then the lady with the bright colored jacket, she was building all kinds of colors, and just look at the focus on their faces, and so that's a amazing thing. And one of the things I asked them to do at Collington, there's a little art, what brings them joy on the right. And I was on the way to the dining hall, and there was this blank wall. I said, could you put this stuff up on the wall? And they were looking at me like, well, our parents put all that ugly stuff we made on the refrigerator when we were little, right? So let's display some art. So, and what was cool about it is that we put the little name tag, who built it, and then on the little way to the dining hall, they could change the pieces. You don't feel the same way every day. They could move some stuff around. We asked them to only move their pieces in their build, and they saw their name. They understood it was theirs, and then they would change the pieces. It was amazing. I don't know if it's still there, but it was there then. So I was happy. And so, think about ways that you could kind of bring some joy by displaying some of their art. You don't have to put it on the wall, but you could certainly buy a little thing and a little frame and stand it up on their table or something so they can be reminded of what they accomplished. Now, check this out. To the question, build your greatest achievement in your life thus far. Look at what I got. On the left, this woman was a classical pianist. You see that grand piano? And the thing next to it is a musical note. The person in the center, he was an orchestra conductor. Look at that. He used both Duplo and Lego, an orchestra conductor. And then last one, that black piece that the minifigure is sitting on, a senior golfer on the Pro Tour, that black piece spins. So when you spin around, that little yellow piece was the golf ball. And he came up with that whole thing. I think we just give them a hand because some of the things these folks come up with is mind blowing. The hardest part of my job is not to cry. When that classical piece, I'm looking at that thing like I can't do that. I'm looking at the piano thinking that's stunning. So just to show you what folks can do. So just think about that as we go through. All right. Category scenario number 2. How about building with the person with dementia? So caregiver and care receiver together. So you can see the picture on the left. That's a virtual event. You can see the little name at the bottom, mother, daughter building together. And in the middle picture, that's Generations Crossing in Harrisonburg with dementia. That gentleman has dementia and Parkinson's. So when it's Lego Day, his wife always comes to help build with him. And then there's a church support group, caregiver support group on the right, and they all building together. So there are a lot of benefits to that too. So let's look at what they are. I've had dozens of this at this point of families who have uncovered stories their relatives have never told before until I asked the task and they build a response. So you get a lot of shock and awe at these things. And I love the family in this picture. It was a virtual event, but she talked them into letting her come to their mother, and they were on the other side of the room with the mask on and everything. And it was great they let her do that because her mother died a few months afterwards. So they got to build together one last time. That was fabulous. And so you get a lot of fun, a lot of laughter. We take a lot of photos and videos of what they do, and I send it to them, and so they can both all be in the picture together. So many benefits of building together. Just things you would never have thought of, conversation that you'll have. Nobody sits around and talk about, so what was your greatest accomplishment? This is not everyday talk around the dining room table, right? I'm like, why is she asking that? But it generates so much you know joy and learning from each other and hearing things you've never heard before. So really cool. Look at the expression on this couple's face. Amazing. The woman said something shocking. He always missed that she couldn't say she loved him anymore. And they were building, I asked them to build, would bring them their greatest joy. And they built that tall little thing, had like 6 pillars. They built their decades of love. Decades of love. And then she took her heart and slammed the heart down on top of that thing. And she said, "Love you," which she had not said in a couple of years. People were going, and look at the look on his face. And the daughter was like, "Loretta, how'd you get that picture?" I'm like, "I don't know. I was just snapping. I saw her pick it up. It was only like 5 minutes to go in the session." So a lot of joy there. So, again, think about the folks you work with. What kind of stories might you be able to get out of them? And so really amazing. So, again, we do this virtually. We do it in person, just depends. And so this is the artist senior living group with the lady with her mom, and everybody else was online virtually. The executive director was building with one of the residents because his wife got COVID and she couldn't come down to participate. So she was yelling instructions from her iPad. And so, a lot of things. But look at the focus of them, the couple in the middle. He was diagnosed very early, like in his late 40s, early 50s, and he thought his wife was the girlfriend. And so they were building a scenario of walking their dog. That was one of their favorite holiday activities. They would put little, reindeer things on their dog and, parade around and everything with the neighbors. And so they had a lot of joy even in the midst of this disease. So folks give me what they want to accomplish in the session and we make it happen. So whether in person or virtually. This is Howard County. Now, this was an amazing thing. It was a support group gathering, but most of them brought their person with them, so everybody's building together. When I tell you every ethnicity was represented in this room on that Saturday, it was a Saturday morning. It was just powerful. The stories they told, and it's hard to see, but the gentleman with the hat on, he's telling this story, and his wife is looking at him like, I can't believe he's telling this story. He wasn't really nonverbal, but what he was saying initially you couldn't really understand. Then he told his story about his joy, and the wife's looking at him like, "Where does that come from?" So I'm kind of sorry you can't see that expression, but just trust me on that. But you can see the smiles, a lot of joy. The gentleman in the white shirt, he was a former neurologist, and he walked around and showed everybody, "Look at mine, look at mine, look at mine." Again, I'm just trying not to cry, and just such amazing stories, and you can't make those smiles up. It's just a thing. Sunrise Senior, we're living in Silver Spring. Another nonverbal, kind of situation. Family was building a cruise ship because they had gone on a cruise 15 years before. You can see the cruise ship there. In the middle of that, this woman that I was told didn't, speak the lie or really at all. She would say a few words, but not a sentence or nothing that they could really discern. But during the building of the thing, she, started to remember little things about the cruise. And the aunt says, "Auntie, you remember the cruise?" And she says, full sentence, "Of course I remember it." Just amazing. And so it's, just stunning to kind of watch that play out. And, the aunt was responding to the niece, says, "Well, you never talk about the cruise." And she's like, "You never asked me." So remember to keep talking to the folks that you're working with. You never know what they might say. And so it's been really cool being able to uncover, um, the different things that, people can still grasp at some stages. And, it just really depends. But the more we work with them, the more they can kind of do. One of my favorite things of all time, you put kids and seniors in the same room. It's magic. Now, I want you to take a close look at that picture. Notice that all of those bricks are white. Those bricks are called Lego architecture. They have a whole line of that. And I'll tell you in just a second why, with the intergenerational group, why did I make them use just white pieces? Well, I'm going to show you. This is the largest project I have ever done. Took 9 hours and 42 minutes. I came up with the theme of building a world without Alzheimer's. What would that look like? Right? So think about this task. What would, in your mind, what would a world without Alzheimer's look like? One of the little girls from picture before, the little girl in the center, she has on the blue, like with some stars and blonde hair, and she's working with a lady in a white sweater. And her grandmother had run away and got on a bus, and the grandmother had dementia. And she built, when it was time for her to share her story, I told them, start your sentence with, "In a world without Alzheimer's," and then tell your story. She made a bus. She held up the bus. She said, In a world without Alzheimer's, my Grammy would remember how to ride the bus and what stop to get off. Okay. Yep. And so that whole table there, when you can see in the middle, when all the parents and siblings and spouses dropped everybody off, the pre-K and the adult day program in the same building, Generations Crossing again is its name. All the table was empty. You can see it. Halfway, we put stuff out. And then at the end, you see the end on the left. Look at that. 9 hours and 42 minutes later. Now, what I want you to see is that you can still identify all those white pieces. And apparently, some of their funding from the Commonwealth of Virginia is based on how many intergenerational activities they do a month or something, right? So I wanted them to be able to see all the white pieces was created by the intergenerational group. Make sense? So but you can see everybody was able to tell a story. So everybody built. The staff built their models. The adult day built separately their models. The pre-K built their stuff. The after-school kids who get off the bus there, so their parents pick them up, they built stuff. So the whole thing. So that table represents the entire organization's builds. And then they left it up for about a week so that the entire community could come by and see it. And they had a lot of traffic that that week of everybody coming in, and the resident would come out and talk about their build and what it meant to them. You could see some of the families kind of filing through there. And so just one of the greatest things. And it was like weeks before COVID, literally, it wasn't 6 weeks before COVID. So glad that I was able to get that project in. And I've done smaller things with a couple of other organizations, but nothing that big. It took us, 2 days to kind of pull that off. And but a magnificent kind of project. And this is just more laughter and the lady with the black and white sweater on building with the caregiver. She was supposed to be building with her son. He wasn't in an accident, but he was behind the accident on the beltway, and you know how that goes. So the caregiver jumps right in and she's building with him. So the son tells me later, Loretta, my mom doesn't have laugh like that when I'm with her. So I was like, get some Lego. Maybe that's the problem. And so he was like, man, she looks so happy. So you can see the payers. And then the caregiver in the blue scrubs with the lady in the fuchsia shirt. Oh man, the lady that she was caring for wasn't really able to articulate. Reminded me a lot of my mom. She wasn't really able to articulate her feelings, and I guess she never told the caregiver how much she meant to her. She said, "I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for her." And the caregiver was about to burst into tears. She had never said that, and they both sitting there smiling. It was amazing to watch the two of them together, and you could see how much they care for each other. So all of these amazing stories that you get just kind of like, wow. And I think that a lot of times myself, is this really my job? Kind of thing. So pretty neat. And this was the first time I had ever done four generations. You can see that was on the news as well. So having four generations built together, that was really, really cool from the standpoint of you're seeing four different perspectives about either holiday or what they're like as grandparents and all of these kinds of things. It was really an amazing event. So kudos to that organization for having us out that day. So now to what you all do. I get a lot of questions about, is this really beneficial for family and professional caregivers? It works amazingly well. And here's why. When you talk about building, my job, I believe, is to create a safe space for you all to be able to relax and play in, and you can just catch your breath for a minute, right? But here's again, I told you the power of it is really the sharing of those stories. So, one of the things Dexter asked you to do at the beginning is share a tip or so of what you're trying out there that's working. Well, when people are sharing their stories of what they did with Miss Betty or John or whoever's building, you might not have thought of that. So, you can learn just as much as like, wow, I would have never thought of what Diane was doing. I'm gonna try that with my client. Okay, great. And so you learn so much more as a facilitator. Sometimes I just stand there and let the magic happen. All right. So but you're supportive of each other. You might have a coworker who's dealing with a very difficult client, and they might just have some fun and break the ice with that client. And so make some suggestions about that. So it's very supportive, and the entire group learns from it, and it's amazing. And so the reflective process there is everybody is bringing such a different perspective to the situation. That's kind of how I look at it. So it's really beneficial for both groups. So we'll get into that now. So when I'm working with family caregivers, I'm having them build joy and hope and resilience. Interestingly, Johns Hopkins is my largest client. One of the grants I worked in over the last 2 years, right, coming out of COVID, was resilience. I went to all of the nursing homes that fall under the purview of Johns Hopkins. And I went from floor to floor to floor to floor in all these nursing homes working with the staff, it was hard after COVID, all the deaths and, just, such an overhang of sorrow and all that. And they brought me in to see, can you just give them some resilience? So now, some of the nursing homes, you see they're next to their computers, they have their little bag of bricks. And sometimes when somebody takes a turn for the worse or has a death of somebody we're caring for, you see them building how they feel about that at their desk. And at Keswick, for example, their amazing CEO, Aileen, she said, "Oh, Loretta, this is going just as I wanted it to go. I see, the staff really building things to really let some of their grief out and all that. So it's gone well. So I help people create strategies for different caregiving challenges they're facing, some goals they want to set for themselves. And I go right at the tough stuff. I'll ask you, Bill, your worst day as a caregiver, and they will tell you what it was. Dad got out, I was reading the book, and dad escaped and almost got hit by a car. And so, they do it. For professional carers, I'm helping folks build strategic plans, get new mission, new ideas, how they want to enhance their work environment. And one of the premises of Lego Serious Play is when you include everybody and you hear all voices, sometimes the people without the big titles have some amazing strategies for enhancing the great work that you all already do. So it's a lot to offer with this program. You can see, you can't really read that, my apologies, when Home Instead was bought by a technology company called Honor in 2021, I went to Arizona where they were having this big retreat to combine forces. And I had them build a whole series of things to become one team once that occurred. So all the franchise owners were in place as we went to, and it was an entire day. And I was a surprise. So they even, and I have Lego earrings if you haven't noticed. So they asked me to take the earrings off. So when they unveil what we're going to do and people say Lego, and then all the Lego bricks were in this box on the table. So that was kind of a fun thing, but just as much value for family caregivers and professionals as well. So just some of the family caregiver stuff. Here's what's interesting about this. I never thought you could teach this virtually, but I also have a certification to teach this virtually. You can see all of the ones we do. I had a job at that. One of the things, so how did you, has this always been your job? No, I had a 40-year security career. My last gig, I spent the last 8 years of my career in Homeland Security. But I quit during COVID because so many caregivers were calling me crying. I was not going to tell people, let me call you back when I get off. So I told my boss, I'm like, I need to quit this job and do this full time. He was like, don't quit. You get more done in a week than most people do in a month. Well, that was true, but it became kind of an ethical thing for me. I was on the phone with 5 or 6 hours a day sometime with crying caregivers. What are we supposed to do with mom and dad all day with this COVID lockdown thing? It was traumatizing for a lot of people, and I wasn't going to hang up on people, so I quit. And this has been my full-time job, since then. But happy people building strategies. This was a retreat, African American women caring for their mothers, and I had them build a thing on Friday night of what they wanted to accomplish. And we came back on Sunday at the end of the retreat, and they looked much more relaxed and happier, and they had come up with strategies of how they were going to continue to try to be the best caregivers they can be. So, once you come up with a theme of what you want to help folks do, the magic can happen. I created a program called Framing Your Caregiver Journey. Some people remember the beginning, some people remember the end, some people remember the best day and the worst day, and I let them decide what it is that they want to frame about that. And this was a hybrid event. You could see a couple of the ladies online as well. So just a great way to do that. Here's another hybrid event. Iona, I'm sure you've done some work with some of those folks. Um, and they had to stand in front of the TV so that the people online could see just as effectively as the 15 or 16 people that were in the room. There were about 8 people online. So a pretty good size support group for that. So you can look at activities you could do both, on both scenarios. Now, remember that big World Without Alzheimer's thing? This is the staff from Generations Crossing. And I was in the middle of leading their retreat and they're holding up what they built. So when I talk about people ask, what professionals have you worked with? Name it. I've done it. Doctors, all kinds of agencies. And you might know, I don't know if you know this, but I went to Washington, the state of Washington. I did 7 of the visiting angel franchises in Everett and Tacoma and Port Orchard. It was a wild time. So I love large group like that. I spent a whole week traveling through the state of Washington for visiting angels. That was how I created the Lego minifigure for visiting angels. I did it for that group. But I've done assisted living, staff, memory care, social workers, CNAs. As a matter of fact, at the visiting angels in the state of Washington, they got CEU credits. We did all the paperwork so that all the social workers got CEU credits for attending. So I've done doctors, pharmacists, OTs, CNAs, you name it, we've done it. And so that's been just an amazing experience for me working with these incredible partners there. So I just did the largest group I've ever worked with. It was a luncheon at the sponsored by the Florida Council on Aging, and they were giving out awards that day. So I was the keynote speaker at the awards on 420 people in that room building with Lego. It was a time. We had an absolute blast. And so they all had different positions there, but all top-notch professionals from the state of Florida. And it was a big deal for them because it was their 70th anniversary. So they wanted this big thing. So I had them build their milestone of their career thus far. And they came up, they have done some amazing work. So we really highlighted the 70 years. My goal, the charge I was given, that only 8 people got an award, but they wanted everybody to feel like an award winner when they left. And all the evaluations said, Loretta made us feel like we ran an award too. So I guess I did my job. But it was so much fun. But that was a pretty large group, but we absolutely pulled it off. And, again, it's really getting to hear the work that all the folks just like you are out there doing. You all are doing it pretty much everywhere as well. So the adult day staff, they close for the whole day. I do a lot of those all day kind of team building thing. That's the one in Arlington. The Alzheimer's Disease Council for Genentech, they were coming up with different things about how they could uh, be more receptive and understanding of all of the patients that they were working with. That was a really nice session as well. I did all the Iona support groups, and this was training day for Iona a couple of years ago. I've done some stuff for them since then as well. And the patient advocacy group at Genentech, they're out of San Francisco pharmaceutical company, and they really wanted to improve their listening to what patients were really saying, and so we had to do that as a virtual event, but really nice. I love the small group sessions where again people can really express what they'd like to see. At On Aging, I asked people to predict what you felt the field of aging was going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and what are you as an individual going to bring to that? What are we going to be like? I just turned 67. So I'm like, okay, what y'all going to do for me when I really get old? And so yeah, there were doctors there, pharmacists. It was amazing watching their interaction. In 90 minutes, I worked with 6 different groups. You can see them all there. And I recorded most of it because they had such phenomenal ideas that I eventually typed them all up and emailed them to the staff of On Aging so that people could take some of these amazing ideas and hopefully move forward with them. The small nursing home did all the medical staff, for them. So large or small, Lego Serious Play works for really anybody. And who knew that Lego bricks would make its way to the Alzheimer's Association International Conference? Who knew that? Who knew that was going to be? People looking at the screen like, are those Lego bricks up there? So we were looking at how to overcome some of the barriers to Alzheimer's care. So there was me, a neurologist, a nurse practitioner, somebody living with Alzheimer's and then a caretaker. It was an amazing panel, and everybody got to show what they built and everything. And a lot of really good stuff came out of that um, thing as well. All right. Those are the three groups I promised you: folks with dementia building alone, care receiver, care partner building together, and then working with the caregiver side, both family caregivers. Some of you all are doing both. Some of you have a professional caregiving role and a caring for somebody at home too, right? So this is the third most popular question that I get. And here's the answer: what kind of kits should I be using? Well, I decided to create my own kits a few years ago. Lego does make a kit. If you got on lego.com and you looked it up, Lego does make a kit. They call it an exploration bag. It has about 40 pieces in it. And I used that for the first few years after my certification. But what you see in the top right hand corner, you'll see a bigger picture of it in a minute. That's my own kit. I call it an inspiration kit. But if you just want to go down to the Walmart, again on Amazon, and you want to get a classic kit, you see it there. Classic kit is just a box of a whole lot of mixed up, bright colored bricks things. They come in all kinds of sizes. I think the smallest one is like 200 bricks. The biggest one, 1,500 bricks, right? And so, you can get online and do that and, take a little box with you when you go around your place to take a little, plastic bag, whatever you have, it works. And then they make the classic what's in the small bricks. And then in the middle, those are the Duplo bricks. Now, my mother didn't need the Duplos. We had both. She didn't need them. She didn't have dexterity issues. But if you are working with folks who do have some dexterity issues, be mindful of that. Because if we're going to say that Lego Serious Play ensures everyone is included and that all voices are heard, we can't just have these little teeny things. Oh, I can't do that. If you're going to include people, have the big ones too. And so one of the things that I always try to share with people is this is a Duplo brick and this is a regular brick. And I always do a little demonstration. Look, they work together. People are shocked by that. Like, oh, when my kids grew up, I thought I had to get these away. They work together. Lego calls this a system. So in my bag, I have at least one Duplo brick to show families that. And but I also have individual kit that are just Duplo. So depending on where I go, I take whatever it requires. So I'm doing a thing at Ingleside at King Farm for successive Fridays, and we have both for them. So they get probably 8 pieces in the kit plus the regular inspiration kit that I created. And so I want to make sure everybody has enough pieces in front of them to have a good time. And I hope that makes sense. So now you get to see I've been using this particular setup since 2023. You can see the Duplo brick there. You see the heart. Now the heart comes in 2 sizes. You saw it, and the lady that said "love you" and all that. Here's the big version of it. Then there's a little one too. So which one goes in the kit depends on who I'm working with. With the folks with dementia, I want to make sure they understand this is a heart, that they can see it, they can feel it, and so this one's kind of little. It works too, but I want to make sure that everybody, can relate to it. And so you can look at the good idea. They have a little plate to build on. They have some 2x4s, which is the proper, brick, and it has 2 minifigures in each bag, right? And then the one on the right is the one I was just talking about, where I included the 8 and sometimes 10 Duplo in the kit too. And honestly, the only thing that I have changed since I did this picture, I started taking the little eyeballs out. They reminded me too much of pills, and you don't want anybody popping anything into their mouth. So I do, try to remove those. And so for the Ingleside at King Farm group, I even took the 1x1s out as well, and for their adult day program. So again, knowing who the client is that you're working with and what you need to have is, really cool. And then sometimes you gotta build as you go, right? So the first Friday I went to Ingleside, I met this guy. His name is Jonathan. So Jonathan looks at me. He's like, "Listen," just like this. "Listen, I'm not doing that. If you don't have golf clubs or bourbon, I'm out." I'm like, how does he even know how to say I'm out? But he says I'm out. And so he sat there the whole time, didn't do a thing. He had this little bag. He just sat there. And then there was Shirley. She wanted everything, in color. So we was digging through all these bags trying to find her the different colors that she wanted, right? So going into week 2, which was last Friday, I wanted to make sure I made a special bag for Jonathan and Shirley. At the bottom, I spent 2 hours at my house digging through all this stuff. I'm deciding we're gonna make a golf course for Jonathan. So I got, you see the green plate. I put my label maker and I made a thing that said Jonathan's golf course. And I dug through. I found some trees and all these flags for the golf holes. I made him a golf cart, as you can see right there. So I had everybody build their greatest achievement that day. So I tell Jonathan, build the greatest golf course you've ever played on. And when that man opened that bag and poured it out after what he had done the week before, that was a win for me. So I put this whole dialogue on LinkedIn about the week before and the week after. And then you can see we made a whole bag just for Shirley. It only had yellow, green, and blue in there. And she was so, 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 so happy. That's my job. I got to make them happy, right? And so I think what I want you to take away is that, yeah, I have a kit, right? But if I know the kit isn't working for some people, a few people, in this case, 2 people, then I need to make sure they have just as much fun as everybody else, right? So that's what, the kids, yeah, I have kids, but sometimes the kid don't do a lot, right? So I just want to say before we get to questions, I promise I would leave 10 minutes or so for questions. I did that, but I definitely want to not only thank you for attending today, for the more than 40 of you who joined, but I really want to say, this is not an impossible task. Anybody can get some Lego bricks. Anybody can build. You don't have to do a whole lot. You don't have to be certified. Yes, I started doing certifications for folk who work in this space. And so I've had about 8 certification classes now, all kinds of folks working in memory care or adult day or whatever it is. But I just really want to thank you for not only attending today, but your willingness to come and maybe even try it with your folks. And if you can help some individuals and teams and families, different organizations be better and find joy, then that's a thing. So I hope that I've inspired you to start playing. So with that, I'll do some questions. This is interesting. Every year I told you I go to Denmark for Lego training. This is me standing in front of Lego headquarters. That minifigure's like 20 feet tall or something. So such a cool thing. And so everything I try to do with this methodology, I do with love. So I'm happy to, let me open this chat and see what's in there. Dexter, I don't know if you look
Yeah, we
at any
have
questions.
we have a question here from a
Let's
while
do it.
ago
Okay.
and from Glinda.
Okay.
Uh, awesome work. Do you work with individual families in PG County?
Ooh, hi, what a great question. Answer to that is yes. So a couple of families come to mind. I did a thing at Kaiser a few years ago, and this lady said, she said, "Do you live in Clinton?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Can you I saw you in a TV special and you drove right by my house." I was like, oh my God. And so her situation was her husband, she said, "I can't get a minute's rest. He follows me even to the bathroom." She said, "I just need a break. Can you come by and see if the Lego will work?" I was like, sure. I we met first at the Panera Bread to kind of talk through what we were going to do. Then a few days later, I show up at her house and it was amazing. And he sat there. I took a picture at like 8:59, and he sat there for an hour and 40 minutes. And she said he has never sat there. She went outside and talked to the neighbors, which apparently she hadn't done in months. And I left the kits with them, and she continued to do that. I hear from her on Facebook every now and then. And so that's just one example. I say in the last probably 6 months, I've done some individual families. Most of the time, I find them through either Hopkins, Keswick, Broadmead, and Baltimore. Done a few things. I am on the dementia friendly America team in northern Prince Georgia County. And so sometimes they direct me to different things. I train some of their staff, actually, I trained 5 of them. And so um, I find the people different places, but yeah, I am not adverse. I've actually resolved some family conflict using Lego Serious Play. 2 of the siblings wanted to do one thing with mom or dad, and the other 2 wanted to do something else. And I think in one case, the police had been called uh, because they got that. And so I went with the little Lego brick, solved the whole thing. Everybody came to an agreement. I made them sign what they committed to do, and then I left. And they're still doing it apparently because the mother, they were threatening to remove the mother from the house with dementia, and she's still there. So I guess we were adequately able to resolve it. So the answer to that is yes. People either reach out to me individually, or I'm directed or asked by some agency to do that. It's a great question. Thank you, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. Let me just read some comments here.
Okay.
I think, your presentation is very, um, full in itself. So, so Amalia here is saying interesting. Karen said, wonderful presentation. Thank you. I'm going to try this with my elders. That's what
Yay!
we
And here's
want to
my
happen here.
pretty
It's
cool.
Paula Gupta. Just want to say hi, Loretta. This is good.
Hey, how
Okay.
you doing?
Great insight and work. Thank you. That's from Gregory.
Thank you so much.
And the utilization seems endless, amazingly creative and valuable. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
from Phoebe.
Yay! Thank you, Phoebe.
And yeah, my client, I work. The daughter bought the Lego. She does like it. She only watched the TV entire day. I love the presentation. That's from Dorothy.
Oh,
What a
that's cool.
great option using Legos. Thank you
Mhm.
for that suggestion.
Yay!
Amalia. Okay. Um,
Appreciate
yeah,
it.
Will. Probably Will
Yeah,
has something here.
I just want to add some insight. So, yeah, we love at Busy Angels doing these coffee chats, but we've seen a lot. But Loretta, you are so engaged. I mean, it's an hour, and I thought 15 minutes went by. Um, it's an art to speak
Right?
virtually. I was engaged. You made me think completely differently. I see this applied to a lot of different,
Yeah.
applications, team building. I mean, I really, you know, thank, thanks to innovators like you that, think differently to bring a solution like this. The only question, I know that Dexter put your information in the chat so people could reach out to you via
Yes.
email. Is that the best
Hmm.
way to
Yeah.
engage with you? Just send an email.
Yeah. And then I respond back. We can set up a Zoom. We can talk. On the phone, whatever it is, how people want to engage. Yeah, it works for me.
That's great.
But you could start with the email. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
Awesome.
this is so engaging. I love the stories. Love that you've worked in every care setting too. Um,
Yeah, it's been and it's funny because when it's diverse, you think of all kinds of different ways to
mhm.
kind of do it. And one of the other things I wanted to say, if you get on the website, I never intended for this to be my life either. When my mother got to the point where she couldn't build as much, I started building these fidgets for her. This is my most popular one. The men really like this. Apparently, it reminds them of a game console. But I didn't. One of the things I didn't say today that I usually always say is that Lego was my mother's drug. My mother was never on any meds or anything. All of the behavioral problems we saw with Lego, this was our favorite fidget in the car. She went from having 100% anxiety riding to the doctor's appointments and things. This kept
Hmm.
her from repeating the same thing over and over in the doctor's offices. And I never intended to sell them until another person with dementia saw my mother with this in the waiting room, and he had been really disruptive in the doctor's office, and they came and they asked him to leave, I guess. And then he tried taking it from my mom, and his daughter was like, "Oh, stop that! What? Oh, where'd you get that? I need to buy that for my dad." And I said, "Oh, I make these for my mom." But then my mother gave it to him, and so he never said another word. They could have gone back in to the waiting, to the doctor's office, and all the way to the elevator. He just kept doing it. She got to the elevator and turned around and said, "You need to sell these," and it just kind of took off from there. So, I mean, we create them, we glue them. I have an amazing operations manager named Chris, who been my best friend for years. I
Hmm.
designed them all, and she glues them all together. But I never thought people would order them by football team color, and you know, for their autistic kids. And my granddaughter keeps telling me, Grammy, they're not just for seniors. And so I made one for all her best friends, and now they don't get so much in trouble in class. The parents like, oh, they don't call us anymore because now they took their phones, and so now they have something to wear, and they just seem better.
Yep.
So everybody has a fidget at my daughter's, art school. So it's crazy. But I never thought this would be my life, but this is absolutely the work I was born to do. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, now it's amazing. Now you need to go to Lego and say they need to pay you.
It's so funny because in Denmark they don't really look at people say, do they know about your work? They absolutely they do, which is really funny. They do. And I'm told they saw the Good Morning America thing and how they're aware of it. And we do go to this training every year. I think they don't pay a lot of attention to what happens in the United States until you get published or something somewhere in Europe. And so I was in a magazine in the Netherlands where they talked about security career. I used Lego. We did tabletop exercises, how to evacuate a building, all that. So I used a lot of Lego even when I was in my security career, and then just transferred it to Lego Serious Play. And so when I was in that magazine, they were like, "Oh, there's that woman from Maryland again." And then I guess 2 years ago, they at this advanced training every year when you go, they ask 6 people or so to do a presentation about how they use it. And so that year, it was the first time they had ever done all women. And so it was 2 women from um, Brazil, a woman from Dubai, one from Australia, and me. And they were like, "There's that girl from Maryland again." So the Lego lady, that's what everybody calls me. I was telling Dexter before we started that I fly with so many bricks, 20, 30, 40,000 Lego bricks up for the 420 people in, Palm Beach in Florida. That probably was, 50 some thousand Lego bricks, and they were like, it's just as and I have Lego luggage. So that's how I got the name, the Lego lady. But I think during that presentation in Denmark, people looked at the screen like, those are people with dementia. So even some facilitators who have the same training as me, they were like, I go see my dad in the care home. That's what they call them in Europe. I go to see my dad at the care home every week. I would never, ever have thought to take my Lego bricks and until I saw your presentation. So it's interesting that even some people who use it, most of them are coaches or trainers, or they work in HR or team build, whatever it is, but they would never have thought of to use it with people with dementia. So I'm happy to open that door for them.
Yeah, I'm really interested almost in the science, you know. It's like there's science
Yes,
behind what you're saying, and it's like it's almost like get clinical studies behind what you're doing. Like it's but that we're
everybody
we're
asked me
totally
that.
diverted, but it's
Everybody
really interesting.
asked me that. And here's what's fun. A young man I've been mentoring for about a year. His name is JP York. His dad's a big time speaker as well. And he is certified. Well, he drove 3 hours to meet me in Atlanta. I did a thing there last year for some friends and everything. He is now working with a guy who was hired to do this data analysis and start the research. And I'm really excited about that. So they're looking at how long did they engage with the bricks, were there certain colors? And so they're looking at a lot of stuff. And it is a person with a PhD in this research thing. So I can't wait to see where that goes.
Mm,
I had written an abstract for to try to make the connection. Find out what is the connection between Lego Serious Play and the brain, because everybody do wants to know, is it evidence based? So I get that question a lot.
mm,
And so when I think if we got that off the ground and really got the science behind it, there are, so if you Google Lego Serious Play and you look at science behind it, at Robert Rasmussen, who was my trainer, he talks about the thinking with your hands. So you see a lot of AI data of when your hands are building, what neurons are firing in your brain. And it's typically different from what you get when people are doing a crossword puzzle or painting or whatever. So don't know why. And again, it might be the 3D nature of it, because it's a very emotional thing. I think some people are very surprised by how many tears are shed, and there's just as much laughter. But it is such an amazing thing to kind of unlock some things that had previously been locked up. I think that's a good thing.
no, that's great. And you've gotten some more comments as we've spoken, and I know we're up on the hour,
Yeah, yeah.
Dexter. But yeah, one person said that they cared for their husband and
Mm,
they colored and separated the coins according to size and tried to play
yes.
Jenga, but sometimes it's a little difficult. I didn't know if
Hmm.
you experienced that. Um,
Nice.
and then another one is I helped my mom with puzzle storytelling, and it really
Oh,
helped
it's cool.
communicate, yeah, with songs. And they're going to share with their friends.
Yeah. Awesome.
Um, yeah, there's just some more questions, and then I think the last question was um, people asked about the recording and sharing this, and I guess Dexter, I know like after this, everyone's going to receive an email with the recording, but I don't know if you want to share some
Yeah,
light,
they could.
actually.
I can do the slide. I can share the slides. Yeah,
Awesome. All
yeah.
right. So we'll just be attaching the slide. So usually we
Mhm.
send the replay via email. So let me just edit it, everyone
Mhm.
watching here. I'll be editing it, and we'll be sending a copy of this replay along
Yeah,
with the slides.
yeah.
And one quick question. What's the full name of the gentleman named Rasmussen who's writing
Yeah,
about this
Robert
work?
Rasmussen, R
All right.
A S M U S S E N. Robert
Oh.
Rasmussen. And if you Google the creators of Lego Serious Play, it was him, this gentleman, Per Christensen, who's one of the descendants of the Lego creator, founder of Lego, and Johan Roos, who is very popular. He's one of the academicians from the UK, who also was one of the initial co-founders of Lego Serious Play. He is still doing a lot of research into Lego Serious Play. He had two big posts on LinkedIn this morning I saw before I logged on to this. So Johanroos, Johan Roos, and he's
Mm.
quite the person. And then last year's conference, this past October, a few weeks ago, it was we can use AI in Lego Serious Play. So that was a really good session as well, coming up with different themes and continuation sessions, things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you all so much for having me.
Thank
And
you, Loretta.
thank
Oh,
you very
sorry. One
much.
thing I was going to mention. Usually at these during these events, everyone drops off, and everyone stayed. So that's a testament to you, Loretta.
I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate y'all.
Awesome. Anyway, so I guess that's it for today. I
Yay.
would like to thank you, everyone, and of course, you, Loretta, our expert panelist today. And to remind everybody here on the show right now, we do these coffee chat sessions every third Wednesday of the month. So it's monthly and it's always free. And you can always bring your friends, if you got invitation, send it to your friends. You can watch it with them, watch with the people you're taking care of, and yeah. So any last words, Will, for our audience?
No, other than it looks like Carolyn Stuckey has a question, but I don't know how how she'll
Oh,
address that. But we could. She has her hand raised. I don't know if you want to
All right,
type it
let's
in,
see.
Carolyn.
oh, and then I think let me just see. No. So will you have my email address too, right? So you can just do that and then the website's there. So if we didn't get to your question, you can certainly email
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
lwvini at lorettavini.com.
Yep. No, but Loretta, this was wonderful. These events are great. It's all about, it's there's a lot of resources, but it's finding where they are, and it's people like you. You're warm, want to get stuff done. That makes a difference. Visit Angels. That's what
Yeah.
we want to do. And it looks like Carolyn is almost
Yeah,
joining
let's
here.
see. Does
Oh, there she is.
Carolyn
Okay.
have
I see.
something to say? Let's see
Okay.
if
She's on mute, but then she's showing up.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's either that or it's a mispress, misclick.
Well, Loretta, we could find if
Okay.
she could email
Yeah.
us, and we will make sure,
Okay.
Carolyn,
And you can
that you
pass
get
it
in
along.
touch.
That sounds good.
Yeah, we'll do that. And
Okay.
I know we've gone beyond our time, but that shows you how engaged, and you've definitely tapped into something.
Oh,
And
thank you so
we're
much.
honored to have you. Just the people you've met, you've been across the country, even the world, and
Yeah.
it's great. That speaks to the caliber. That's what we're trying to do with these coffee chats. Is really
Yes.
bring
Awesome.
value to not only our clients but the senior community.
Oh, thank
Mm-hmm.
y'all. Have a great rest of the
Mm-hmm.
day.
You
All
too.
right.